Hello and welcome to a very special Christmas bonus, which admittedly isn't actually all that special. It's the same as all the other bonuses, it just so happens to land on Christmas. Now don't worry, I'm not spending my Christmas making videos, I actually pre-recorded this. So it's Christmas Eve, and once I've recorded this I'm going to get my stuff together and I'm going to travel home to see my parents. And you know, do all the usual Christmas stuff, spend some time with family, spend some time with the girlfriend's family. And then I'll come back home and usher in 2014. And of course after that, back to the grindstone, back onto doing the second half of my Ghost series. Because yes, we've now done all of the assault rifles, all of the SMGs, and one sniper rifle to boot, which takes us to 15 episodes in total, which, using the power of maths, and the knowledge that I'm going to do 30 episodes, that tells us I'm halfway through. Exactly. So I'll be moving on to the other weapon classes now, the marksman rifles, the LMGs, the shotguns, the remainder of the sniper rifles. All of which are a little bit more specialised, all of which may be a little bit more difficult to get clips with, but it's alright, because there'll be a whole host of Christmas noobs, or at least that's what I'm hoping. I kind of have the horrible feeling that there's not going to be any Christmas noobs, it's just going to be a bunch of sweaty tryhards looking for Christmas noobs. But it matters not, if I have to use clips of single kills then so be it. Anyway, as far as the gameplay in the background, I have been playing some Blacklight Retribution. It's a free-to-play game on both PS4 and the PC, and it's alright. It's a refreshing change from COD. It's not quite the same, it doesn't have the same slick controls, everything's a little bit laggy from time to time, and it's a free-to-play game, so at every corner you're reminded that you need to spend money to unlock stuff permanently. But like I said, it's a nice, refreshing change of pace when compared to Call of Duty. I am mooting doing a single video on this game. Just like a one-off, you know, basic tip sort of thing, you know, like a primer. Like you've never played Blacklight before, watch this 10-minute video and you'll have a pretty good idea of how to do the basics. I think that's something I might do more often, you know, single videos or maybe short series, like for Battlefield 4. I'm thinking of doing 4 videos, one for each of the classes. That fits in well with my schedule, because obviously, come March, I'm going to be doing a bit of a longer series for Titanfall. So anyway, a single Blacklight video is on the horizon. Don't panic if you see Blacklight on my channel, I'm not going to spend all year doing it, I'm not going to do a weapon guide for it, it would cost me too much money. But I think 2014 is really the year where I do have to become a variety channel, or it's either that or wither and die. I mean, Ghosts is plenty withered as it is, it's just, well, there isn't much else to play at the moment. But the new year brings new promise, and, oh, I don't know about you, but I'm getting hyped for Titanfall. Anyway, let's get on with the questions. Not You says, didn't get answered so I'm going to ask again. Do you enjoy Monty Python, and if so, what is your favourite film or sketch? Sure, I dig some Python. I wouldn't say like I was a huge fan, but of course I've seen Monty Python sketches, I've seen the films, I think. It's been a while since I've last seen them, but they're such classics, you can't help but be exposed to them, you know? Favourite bits that come to mind? Probably The Black Knight. You know, it's just a flesh wound. And the Dead Parrot sketch. I mean, those are the, you know, classical, but there's so much classic Monty Python. Irvo Marcinal says, seeing as it will be Christmas Day when the bonus videos come out, what presents did you get today? Did you expect to get any of them? And did you not like any of them? I told you, I don't know, it's Christmas Eve, I don't know. The girlfriend, she got me some jumpers and some beef jerky, I know that much. Beyond that, not really expecting too much. You know, Christmas isn't really a huge deal when you get to a certain age. The days of the truly epic present have long passed, like my Commodore Amiga 500 Plus in Christmas 1991, or I think, was it 1986, 1987, when I got a wooden Brio train set? That was pretty awesome. Anyway, all the best presents these days I'll give to myself, like this year, I got myself a PS4 and an Xbox One. That was pretty nice. Iton Levinson says, have you ever tried a drug? And what is your opinion on marijuana? Do you think it should be legal? I have tried countless drugs. Ibuprofen, aspirin, caffeine, clemastine fumarate. It's an antihistamine. But I suppose when you say the word drug, you mean, ooh, an illegal drug. Not that I can remember, no. I never tried marijuana. Not really interested in that, you know? I think if I were to go down that path, I'd be more of a stimulant sort of guy. You know, I like caffeine, so it makes sense that maybe amphetamines would probably appeal as well. I'm not sure if my work would suffer if I was on speed, though. As far as the legality of marijuana is concerned, I'm strongly in favour of it. Considering that it's both less addictive and less harmful than both alcohol and tobacco, and both of those are legal, it simply doesn't make any sense for cannabis to be illegal. Unless, of course, you want to make both tobacco and alcohol illegal to boot. Which I wouldn't be in favour of, you know? You've got to have a little bit of harmful joy in your life, haven't you? Everything in moderation, I guess, that's what they say. Your Text 212 says, Mr. Brown, on what difficulty do you usually play on single-player games? On the last few bonus videos, I have noticed your enemies have been, well, let's just say, they seem to be on the special forces. Alright, you got me. I was playing Killzone on easy. I read some reviews that say it gets frustratingly difficult later on, and I thought, you know what? I don't want frustrating. I just want to look at the pretty visuals and experience what little story there is on offer. Most other stuff I tend to leave on normal though. I mean, certainly if there are achievements for it. But it's single player. There's no shame on playing on easy. I spend most of the week sweating away in COD lobbies trying to get clips. Is it a crime for me to want to kick back and relax against some stupid bots? Kozak Poland says, quoting me, there is nothing wrong with the mainstream of gaming. Everything that's wrong with gaming nowadays is due to mainstreamization of it, lowered standards, exclusive titles, and console/input limitations. Look, it's alright if you don't like the mainstream of gaming, okay? But the mainstream existing does nothing to harm gaming as a whole. It's like saying Justin Bieber ruins music. It's not true at all. It's fine if you're not a believer. It's fine if you don't buy all of his albums. But Justin Bieber's existence doesn't harm your ability to enjoy other types of music. And the fact of the matter is, there are a whole variety of games that exist. If you're big into racing simulation, for instance, you don't have to play Need for Speed. You can play some really hardcore simulation games. The same goes for flight sims. There are incredibly detailed flight sims out there. These games aren't the mainstream. They cater to a very small but hardcore audience. And they're completely unaffected by the mainstream. They exist to satisfy some people who are really passionate about one topic. Now, it's true, you won't find these games on a console. In fact, consoles don't really do well at all outside of the mainstream, but that's because consoles are devices designed to play mainstream games. And if you don't enjoy the mainstream, what on earth are you doing with a console? It's these fringe titles that are the PC's true strength. The fact that there is no vetting process, you don't have to go through a publisher, you can just make a game and release it. It doesn't matter if it's about having sex with dinosaurs or whatever, it doesn't matter. You can make a game and you can release it, and you are completely unfettered by any mainstream concept or publishers or anything like that. But I guess you're complaining about games that fancy themselves as part of the mainstream, games that want to attract a large, broad audience. So I suppose when you see a game like Battlefield, a long-standing PC series, which has always been a true PC game, when you see a series like that taking on features from a game like Call of Duty, like the unlock system, the progression, the DLC, and some of the game modes which are clearly designed to cater to an audience which has come from Call of Duty, it's easy to kind of chalk that up to, this mainstreamization. But these changes, they reflect the audience more than they reflect the developers. They also reflect the financial risk that, the publishers and the investors are making in the game, and the desire to make a return on investment. Basically, these companies have to make a profit, and to do so, they have to pander to as large an audience as possible. It's unfortunate, but, money is one of those things that has effectively tainted all art forms, whether it's cinema or books, and there's always going to be a mainstream populist style, whether it's action films or trashy romance novels. But once again, their existence only supports these fringe titles. It only drives more people to them. So in a perverse way, the mainstream's existence actually supports these indie titles, these fringe titles, these oddities, these hardcore games. These games which might not turn a huge profit, might not prove to be very popular, but they do things differently. They are not designed for profit. They are designed for other, more passionate reasons, whether it's a love of cars, a love of planes, a love of Triceratops. And you can rail against the mainstream all you want. It doesn't make any difference. Spend your time supporting these smaller games. That's what you want to do. You can complain about not having Grand Theft Auto 5 and Red Dead Redemption all you like. The fact of the matter is, these games have huge budgets, and they require the profitability that consoles can ensure. So, you can complain about the mainstream all you like, but the fact of the matter is, there are games outside of the mainstream. They're smaller, they have lower budgets, sometimes they can cater to a really small audience, but they're out there, and for the most part they are unaffected by the mainstream. I mean, sure, there are some titles which have aspirations to be part of the mainstream, and they do make concessions. But if you don't like it, play something else. And if there's absolutely nothing that you want to play, then write your own bleeding game. There is nothing wrong with the mainstream. The RC Bomber says, "Hey Stu, you mentioned doing single videos on games. Would that mean you would be up to maybe doing whole game reviews?" I've actually dabbled with, doing game reviews, stuff like that before. And I've got to say, I don't really get much out of it. I don't really enjoy it for some reason. I don't know, it takes a certain degree of arrogance to sort of make a video devoted to your opinion. Like, listen to me, this is a game, this is what I think of this game. And it's not about whether you're actually interested in hearing that opinion or not, it's about whether I actually enjoy presenting myself in that way, and I don't, for some reason. Besides, there are plenty of games reviews out there, and I'm happy to talk about what I think of a certain game in the bonus, so I don't know, I can't really see myself doing any sort of serious games reviews. I think I prefer to do like helpful videos that actually, like tutorials, like guides almost. That's the kind of area that I like, because even though, opinion comes into it on some fronts, at the core of it, you're trying to be helpful rather than try and impose your belief on somebody, which, that sits better with me. Joel Lassen says, "Have you had a chance to work on your own video game you have mentioned in previous videos?" Not recently, unfortunately, no. I've been kind of preoccupied with the whole Call of Duty Ghosts stuff. I would dearly love to see it through to the end and get it out, and release it. But given that I'm not exactly a proven developer, given that I'm relearning a lot of stuff and I can't promise that this game ever will come to fruition, I do need to focus on stuff which will actually, make money, which is why I'm doing the videos. Because I have to invest in my livelihood, because it's, like I say with YouTube, you are always at risk, whether it's from the copyright side of things or whether it's just views becoming leaner or CPMs, there's always a risk factor. So I guess you always feel kind of vulnerable, and I guess that's why I've been focusing on the videos, because, well, the more videos I put out, the less vulnerable I feel, I suppose. If I'm ever feeling more financially secure, if I ever get a real job, for one, then I might very well resume work on it, and I might actually produce something that's finished, but I simply can't justify gambling my working hours on something which may never pay off. Darkstalkers May Cry says, "Finally, someone else who likes MotoGP. If you still keep up with it, who's your favourite rider?" I wasn't the closest follower of MotoGP. I do enjoy watching motorsports, but I think it's mostly just because of the noises, the smells, and the speed. I like that the most. It doesn't matter who's racing, I can just watch cars go by or motorbikes, and I'm happy. If anything, my preference for the riders was based on the colour of their bikes. I really love the Repsol Honda colours. The black, white, orange, red. Wonderful combination. Don't know the names of the guys who ride them, but I like them all the same. I think the only rider that I could recognise and tell you the name of would be Valentino Rossi. Big Temper says, on that whole thing about copyright music, what about phase and people who make montages with montages? Presumably you mean montages with music. Well, the fact of the matter is, if you want to make a video with copyrighted music and upload it to YouTube, you can. You can. It might get blocked in a few countries and you won't be able to monetize it, but you can still put it out there. Now, I appreciate some of these videos get big views, and it is a bit of a shame for the creators to not benefit at least partially from the advertising revenue that these videos could bring in. But at the end of the day, if you're using copyrighted music, then, rules is rules. One thing that maybe montage makers could do is maybe work with undiscovered artists. There's a whole host of people out there who can make music that's not half bad. Now, you might not be able to use the hottest dubstep track or, the music that you really want, but you've got to bear these copyright restrictions in mind, and you've got to work within the rules. And it might be a little bit difficult to find the perfect track if you're going with, amateur artists, but there are some talented guys out there, and I'm sure some of them wouldn't mind having their work used in such a fashion, especially if it meant more exposure for them. Blake Swihart says, "Have you seen the new Hobbit film, Stu? If so, what did you think of it?" Yes, I have. I watched it last week. I enjoyed it. I'm not sure what I think about, the film being split into 3 separate parts. I suppose it lets Peter Jackson go into detail and really explore the world and sort of elicit and illuminate some of the more, the sidetracked bits, but the interesting bits nonetheless. But yeah, it's enjoyable. It's an enjoyable little romp through the world of Tolkien. Not as action-packed as the Lord of the Rings, but what are you going to do? 7-9 says, "Do you think it's unethical for a male YouTuber to use his attractive wife or girlfriend to get views?" Well, it's not unethical. I mean, as long as everything's done in a consensual way, as long as the wife or girlfriend isn't being coerced into doing something she doesn't necessarily want to do, then it's fine, I guess. Don't get me wrong, it's pretty galling to see attractive people parading around in front of the camera, but this is the world we live in, isn't it? This reality show nonsense doesn't really have much appeal for me. I'm not really into vloggers, and I certainly don't want to be a vlogger, so you'll forgive me if I don't tread down that path. I mean, oh sure, it would be more mainstream if I did that, but you've got to have some values, haven't you? Let's keep it about the games. Cajun Cookies asks, are you excited for Fallout 4? If so, what do you think of it being in Boston? Yes, I am very much looking forward to the next installment of Fallout. I've always been a bit of a latecomer to the series. I never played Fallout 1 or Fallout 2 or any of the earlier Fallout games, but I did pick up Fallout 3 in the wake of the advertising campaigns behind it and the fact that the game just looked flat out cool. Since then, I've spent hundreds of hours in the game, and I'm looking forward to spending hundreds of hours more. As far as location's concerned, not really too bothered, to be honest. I mean, the Fallout series is all about America. It's all about that sort of American kitsch 50s culture. So we're never going to see it anywhere else. So anywhere in America's fine by me. Boston, I guess. Fine. I would dearly love to see like a similar approach to a post-apocalyptic game, but set in the UK. There'd be fewer guns and more pubs, I suppose. I'd produce something like that myself if I had the time. The Jason Moretti says, simple question, Stu. How do you feel about camping? I realise there are many forms, so I'll keep it more straightforward. How do you feel about corner campers? Guys who just sit looking in one direction, not moving with a dog, and 2 IEDs and a tracker scope. Ah yes, camping in first-person shooter games. Nothing elicits more ire than this. Now, the fundamental problem with all deathmatch game modes is that camping is the only logical way to play. This is why you don't see MLG, TDM, or free-for-all even, because the only way to play these games, in a competitive sense, is to not expose yourself to risk. And in deathmatch, movement is risk. So what you want to do is you want to wait for your opponent to move. And then, when he does move, you shoot him. So, that's what TDM kind of just turns into in a competitive stance. And so if you want to get a really good KDR, then camping is the way to do it. But it's not very sportsmanlike, I will say this much. In a public match, where the goal is to have fun and to not win at all costs, it is unsportsmanlike. Now, in the case of corner campers, you often see people who aren't very good at the game sitting in a corner, not wanting to take risks, not wanting to die. But in a game like Call of Duty, it doesn't matter if you die, it doesn't matter if you have a bad KD. It's just a game, and a pretty casual game at that. Now, if you do play really conservatively and you do sit in corners, your KD will probably be higher than what it would otherwise be. But the trouble is, you won't get better at the game. At least you won't get appreciably better as far as moving and playing aggressively is concerned. Movement is always risk, but if you're good at the game and you know the maps and you know where people are, movement can also yield more exciting, faster-paced gameplay. And you can get a lot of kills, you can get a lot of XP, and you can get the higher kill streaks and all the rest of it when you're good. So, camping, a crutch for some, and it is the logical way to play, but if you do it in a public match, you are ruining it for everyone else. But, whatever, it's your game, you can play however you like, I'm not going to try and police it. The Pale Player says, hey Stu, I'm gathering equipment and such to start up my own channel soon, but I keep seeing that you can't record from a PS4, and then I see that you've done it right here. How did you do it? What capture device are you using? Yes, the PS4 has HDCP copy protection. I appreciate saying that HDCP copy protection is like saying ATM machine or PIN number, but moving on, that's what it is. It's copy protection, which means that you need a secure encrypted link between two devices to display a picture. Now, this means a lot of capture devices can't actually record from the PS4 because of this protection. But yes, you're right, I can. And the reason I can do this is because I have bought a HDMI splitter. Actually, no, it's an HDMI switch that rather conveniently strips out the HDCP. I'm not sure if that's legal, but, these things are all made in China and, well, they just don't care over there, do they? There are some devices which will strip out HDCP that are very expensive. I actually have one called the 3D Fury, and it does its job wonderfully. It also does a few other things. It lets me upscale, downscale, that sort of thing, and also lets me convert between 3D formats if I ever needed to. But this HDMI switch does the job, and it was like 20, 30 quid or something. It's the 5-in-1 Kinovo HDMI switch, if that's of any use to you. There are probably some others that'll do it as well, but I'm not entirely aware of a comprehensive list. Anyway, we have arrived at the end of my blacklight footage, so I shall wrap it up here. Time for me to get ready to go back to my parents and, do the whole Christmas thing. So I shall wish you all a very Merry Christmas, whatever it is you celebrate towards the end of the year. There'll be no weapon guides this week, for I am taking some time off, but they will resume in the new year, I think. Anyway, until then, farewell.